Good morning, Naomi. Good morning, Ilan. Anybody there? You must be getting your coffee, I guess. I don't know. Okay.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you this morning?
Good, thank you. How are you and everyone else?
Well, nobody else is talking to us.
I see.
So I ran downstairs to get a cup of coffee real quick before we got started.
Okay, I thought my computer had frozen up or something when I didn't hear anything.
Sorry. I did the wrong thing. I muted myself instead of, it was like, okay, hit the wrong button there. There we go.
Oh,
All right.
I thought maybe it did freeze up.
I'm so sorry.
Technology.
I don't mean to give you a hard time.
Yeah, start me off with confusion. I'll have a great day.
Right. Yeah, that's all you need, right?
All right.
Oh, geez. We got a bunch of stuff to look at today and talk about.
Good.
All kinds of stuff. So what have you been doing lately? What have you been working on?
Well, I decided to start drawing more, so I had a project that I had this thing where I was drawing a face every night before I went to bed. So I decided maybe I'll start that again to keep my drawing muscle active.
That'd be good. That'd be great, actually. Um, yeah. You know, I would say one of the things I think that keeps me sort of in the realm of doing artwork more than anything else is that I actually love to draw. You know, and I enjoy drawing far more than I enjoy painting or sculpting or really just about anything else. I mean, you know, I think as a you know as a child growing up, you know, drawing to me was it was like an escape. You know, I could just go draw anything, make my own, you know, world. You know, use my imagination, and I used to just spend hours and hours just drawing when I was a little kid. Um, all kinds of things like dinosaurs, and you know. all this different stuff. Um,
That's how you got so good, right?
Pardon?
That's how you got so good, huh?
Well, I mean, it didn't hurt. Um, now were my drawings real sophisticated at that point? I think, for a 9 or 10 year old kid, yeah, but they weren't, they weren't great drawings, you know, but they served their purpose at the time, and they stimulated my imagination. And, a good deal of the time when I was growing up, we were living in places where there was either a language barrier because we were living overseas and I didn't speak Japanese, like, for example, or Greek. Um, and, living in foreign countries and things like that, my parents really didn't let us go off on our own very much, you know, not even on the military base. It was kind of like we were in the yard or like real close by. And that's as far as we would kind of adventure out. So it's not like I spent a lot of time surrounded by like other kids my age, um, really until pretty much like junior high school. When we moved back to Columbus, Georgia, we were there for a while, and so up until that point, drawing was kind of like my outlet. I could stay busy all day long, just drawing. So, um, and if you talk to, I think if you talk to a lot of artists or people who ended up being professional artists, I think we all have kind of like similar stories. I know like a lot of people who became illustrators, art directors, creative directors. Um, a lot of them actually, one of the common stories is that they had some kind of childhood illness and they ended up having to spend a lot of time isolated by themselves. And so drawing for them, again, and making art was sort of a way of, creating, their own world, and staying, engaged, both emotionally and mentally, I think. And I think a lot of artists end up that way. They kind of start off for some reason, they're, and particularly guys, I don't know about women so much, but, male artists, I think a lot of them, ended up having some kind of situation in their life where they, as a child, they were kind of isolated, and they gravitated toward art as an outlet. So.
I prefer painting. I used to draw a lot as a child, but I got away from it, and you're sort of inspiring me to move toward it because I'm not in love with drawing. I like painting better.
Okay. Yeah. You and John the non-drawer.
But not, yeah, right. I don't draw.
I'm going to change that for you, John. I'm going to change that for
Yes.
you. I am.
You are challenging me, yes.
I am. Well, and I think one of the reasons that, and painting is fine, sculpting is great, I mean, any kind of artwork is great, mentally and emotionally for you. But I think drawing is one of those things, at least for me, it's kind of how I figure things out in the world. If I can take it and look at it and kind of break it down into components and shapes and patterns and things like that, and kind of figure out how it's put together and it works, it seems to make sense to me then. And that's something that you don't get from painting. You don't get that sort of analytical process, that you do in the process of drawing. And I think that's one of the reasons I really love drawing. Just, and always have. So,
What do you think of this uptake in coloring books? Is it that during the pandemic, more people were going to our color books.
Well,
Fill in
even
and
yeah, actually, even before then, before we went on, like sabbatical because of this virus thing, we had a couple of classes at Benson that it was like adult coloring.
oh, okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, yeah, they had oh god, it was 3 or 4 sessions, and we went out and bought all these color pencils and crayons and stuff like that, and they had adult coloring books, and they actually purchased like a whole series of these things, and people could come in, and it was just I think it's a great outlet, for just like stress relief, and for people who don't feel like they're particularly creative, to go in and do something and enjoy the process and not have to struggle with, well, I can't draw and stuff like that. There's a 1,000 different, reasons why, why we can't do things that, quite frankly, we did when we were children, and never thought about it, but then we become adults. So anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. How's everybody doing today? Let's see. How many
Okay.
Doing good.
Good.
I apologize. I have to leave the meeting in 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry you have to leave the meeting, but we have a lot to talk about today, a lot to cover. And I'm Ilan, because you're leaving in 20 minutes, I'll jump right into it. And there's a couple of things I want to share. Most of you were here yesterday. Can't really tell you here. So let's see. Yeah, okay. Yeah, pretty much everybody was here yesterday. And so I want to share, because I was trying to draw upside down and backwards, remember?
Yeah.
But wasn't that fun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do. It's fun to see that you can do it. I have a problem doing it straight,
Okay.
not backwards,
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge when you can't really see the paper you're drawing. Anyway, I started, I had that in the sketchbook, and this is kind of where we ended at yesterday. And, the idea was, I just wanted to get the point across that you need to start developing an underlying structure before you start putting on details. And a good portion of not only you guys, but really anybody who starts drawing, is they get it in reverse. See, they start with the details thinking that they're going to build the structure. It doesn't work that way. So this was staring me in the face yesterday, when I ended the meeting, and I kept looking at it and like, and it's sitting there in the sketchbook. So I decided to keep going with it, just keep playing with it. It was bugging me looking at it that way. So as you remember, what I was talking about is you start laying in the tone, in kind of a directional way, rather than just a straight, 45-degree angle. And if you squint your eye down, you can begin to see kind of the shape of a skull there. If you forget about the eyeball there, and just squint your eye down, you begin to see sort of the structure of a skull underlying there. And so, I just kept developing that, a little at a time. Now notice, I haven't come out here and put an outline or anything. I'm just using, just very loose tone at this point. Okay. And that eye was, bugging me. And so, I just took it out, just erased it. But, I kept, at this point, I did some measurements, made sure that like the eyes were about the same size, same height. Just got in a basic structure for the nose, found the center line of a mouth. Okay. And I really didn't know what this was going to look like, as I went along. I'm just kind of making it up. And I wasn't looking at any reference or anything. I was just trying to make it look like a human head. That was my one and only goal. Okay. And see, about that point, I started looking for like an overall shape for the masses of hair, the ears, kind of where they would sit, and then a jawline and a chin, right? And at this point, see, it's beginning to look kind of human, right? You can tell it's going to be a person, reinforce some of the darks and lights in there. And then, wasn't really happy with, the shape of the hair all by itself. So, and decided to, give this person longer hair. And so began to kind of develop some of the actual shapes and forms in the hair itself. And then went back into, dark and light patterns, trying to reinforce the idea that the light is coming in from the right. And see, it's little by little, it's beginning to look a little more like a person. And at this point, the only thing that I was using was just a blue Prismacolor pencil. That's it. Okay. So I started building in some light at that point, and which gave me the opportunity to, one, create more contrast, but also start softening, some of those transitions and planes, and create a wider range of value until I got to there. See? So, so you can take a drawing like that and you just keep building it up in layers. So anyway, that's where I ended with it. And, it's okay. She's not.
So how much time did you spend on that?
Probably like 45 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, about 45 minutes. From where we started to where it ended. Okay. But at least, now it begins to look like a human face. So it's not the best human face I've ever done. But then again,
A beautiful lady.
Yeah, it's just, it's something out of my head. That was it. So that's one thing I worked on. And the other thing I wanted to show you guys was, and I wanted to kind of get into a discussion of framing and presenting your work, okay? And so you do a painting, and depending on what you do the painting on, whether you do it on a panel or whether you do it on a piece of watercolor paper, or you do it on a gallery wrap canvas, that's going to kind of determine how you present the work, when you finish it, or how you hang it on your wall. And, I know a lot of people don't like to go out, and I'm one of them, and spend a lot of money on trying to buy a frame. Because if you've gone to any of the frame shops or anything like that, what they charge for framing is insane. It's crazy, some of the prices on framing. But if you're going to hang a piece, and depending, if it's like a painted panel or just like a half, 3/4 inch thick canvas, the stretched canvas that's on a stretcher, you can't just hang it on the wall that way. Not if you're going to put it in a show or something like that. You've actually got to have a frame on it. And to that end, one of the things that I tend to do is I take old frames, that people have discarded or thrown away, you know, and or I'd go to like Goodwill or, you know, some of these, you know, kind of like Goodwill type places. And then I'll go through the picture frames. And, you know, if I can pick up a frame for, you know, $5 or $6, you know, even if I don't particularly like the color of it or something like that, you know, I can buy it for next to nothing. If it's, you know, the right size and it's got an inset that I could put a painting in. A lot of the frames that you find at Goodwill and places like that, though, are for posters and for photographs, which means that they don't have a very deep inset. And if you do watercolors and works on paper and you're going to put them under glass, that's great. I tend not to do a lot of that. Okay, I tend to do more paintings. But occasionally, you know, you'll find, you know, a frame. And such is the case with this frame. Okay. Now, when I found this frame, it was an old frame. It was kind of a gray, kind of barnwood look to it, and it had a canvas lining in here. So this was kind of a off-white, and you know, it was kind of beat up and kind of old, and so I decided just to play with it. And so I took a can of copper spray paint and sprayed the whole thing copper. And then after that dried, went back in with a kind of a brownish mixture of oil paint. And just on the outside, you know, up to this edge right here, you know, I just painted it brown over the copper metallic paint. And I probably went over it probably 2 or 3 times. And I'd put a layer down and I'd let that dry, and I went back and I'd do it again. And the paint wasn't totally opaque. In fact, it was kind of translucent. So what ended up happening was that copper still shows through the brown in places, you know, which I like the effect of that, and that worked pretty well. So out of a frame that cost me $4, you know, I got a pretty good looking frame. Okay. And now, you know, I mean, I can put various pieces of artwork in it. Now this is a 14 by 18 frame. And so this is a plein air piece that I had done. And then I had a figurative piece, which is actually what I was making it for, which is why I used the copper to be able to pick up some of the color that was actually in the skin tones in the painting. But, you know, it's a good solution. And rather than going out and spending $200 to frame a painting this size, I ended up maybe spending less than $20 in materials. Now, time-wise, it probably took me a good 5-6 hours, you know, for spraying, you know, cleaning it up, spraying it out, and then going back over it with a second color, and then putting a clear final coat of like acrylic to seal it over the whole frame. So, but you know, that's something that, you know, some of you could think about doing, you know, is start playing with, you know, creating your own frames. Now, if you don't have, you know, a lot of woodworking tools, you don't want to make your own frame, or you don't want to go back in and buy old frames and then modify them to fit the artwork that you're trying to frame, you know, you can always go and you can always buy frames at kind of a discount. And there's a couple different ways of doing that. And you don't need a business license, you know, or anything like that. There's websites that you could go to online to buy framing. And one is called pictureframes.com. And, you know, I went and checked them out, and I had a bunch of like little 6x8 paintings. Probably had about 20 of these, because I would take these to like a lot of these painting sessions when you had about an hour or two to paint, or take them out plein air, and you know you want to do kind of a quick little study or painting. And you know, I picked a frame that would fit the canvases, which were these little 3/4 inch thick canvases. So I made sure that the frame that I picked fit that inset, or it was close to it. And then I saved that, you know, to, you know, basically in my bookmarks. And I would go back and I would check that website, because every once in a while they have sales. And normally a 6x8 frame, which they, you know, it was a custom size, you know, for that frame, would have run about probably $30 a frame. And so I waited, and I ended up waiting about probably 7 or 8 months. And they finally had like a 70, yeah, I think it was about 70 or 80% off sale running here about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. And so I pushed the button on it. You know, I decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and buy about 20 frames. And it ended up costing me, for those 20 frames, it ended up costing me $300. About $330 with shipping and everything else. And, but I got 20 frames, and I got 20 pieces framed. And so, you know, if you figure out the cost on that, you know, that's about $7 a frame. So, you know, just to frame those 20 pieces. And it's, you know, it's not my favorite frame, but it's a good frame to present those pieces in. And it really didn't cost me like a lot of money, you know, to do that. So, you know, a lot of this is about being patient, and, you know, not having to have it like right now, but, you know, just wait until things go on sale, things like that. I do that a lot when I want to buy paint, you know, at like Jerry's or Cheap Joe's or binders. I'll wait until they have a sale. Same thing with canvases. If I want to buy canvases, I wait, and usually I'll buy canvases like maybe 2 times a year if I'm buying it from binders, because twice a year I know that they have what they call a truckload sale. And you can pre-order canvases from them at like 70 to 75% off of their regular retail price. And you just kind of buy them, you know, when they're on sale. And that way you end up saving yourself, you know, a lot of money on material that, you know, you're probably going to buy anyway. But, you know, yeah.
How essential do you think matting is to framing in general?
Well, and see, this is the thing. You know, buying frames for like watercolors, pastels, things, you know, drawings, things like that, it gets kind of expensive. Now, the thing is, you know, you can wait, and you can, again, same website that I was talking about, pictureframes.com, you can wait, and, you know, pretty much so almost all the time, they have some kind of framing that you could put watercolors and things in on sale for about 50 to 60% off. And when you order it, you can order it to the size you want, and you can order the matte, and you can order the glass and everything from them all at once. at that 50, 60% discount. And, if I were going to do something like that, I would probably, you could do it for individual pieces, but I would probably, if you're working out of the same watercolor pad, that you've got 25 pieces. I might wait until they have a big sale, and then I might order 10 or 15 of them, right? And that way they're all consistent, and the mats are all consistent and everything, and you can save a lot of money that way. But if you go to Michael's, if you go to Binders, Blick, whatever art store is near to you, and you're going out and buying mats and framing have gotten like astronomical.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I was in Michael's maybe a month or two ago, and I was looking at mats. One, they didn't have a very good selection, but number two, they wanted like $24 or $25 for a mat.
Yeah.
It was a nice mat, and it was for it fit a 16 by Elon. It fit a 16 by 20 frame, and I think the opening in it was like about 11 by 14. And I needed to buy that, so I ended up actually buying something. But I kind of regretted it because, that's a lot of money, to sink into buying something. Now you can buy the mat board, and you could cut the mat yourself for probably about, $5 or $6. Now that doesn't include the medical expense of you having to go to the hospital because you've cut your finger or something like that. That's a whole nother thing, and or you can buy one of those. Now they have these cutters that you can angle the blade so you can get a bevel, and it's just on a straight bar. And if you know that you're going to be cutting a lot of mats, because you're doing watercolors and drawings and prints and stuff like that, you could go out and probably invest $100 in that and get a good, like 36 to 48 inch long, cutter, and then, set it up, and it's got a lock on it. So you put the mat board in there, and it gets it the same width all the way around. And, you just make your marks, and, you start your cut, and it's nice and straight, and it's at the beveled angle you want. But again, that takes space. It takes time. And you'll probably go through at least 8 to 10 mats before you really get the process down,
Right.
And get a nice clean job out of it. It takes a little practice to do it, like anything. So it all kind of.
Do you think a mat actually enhances a framing, or is not necessarily?
Well, if you're doing works on paper, or photography, you can't get away from it, because the function of the mat isn't really to necessarily enhance the piece. It's to protect
Away from.
Yeah, to create an airspace between the glass and the artwork or photograph, so that it doesn't become a permanent part, of that
Right.
frame.
Right.
Yeah, because you stick your watercolor in there, and there's no mat or something on it.
Flat
Yeah.
against.
Yeah, pretty much so in about a year and a half. And you're trying to take that watercolor out of there. You can't, because it's now glued to the glass because the humidity got into it. And, watercolor has got what we call gum arabic in it. And it becomes sticky if it stays wet and will adhere to the glass. Not a lot of fun, So, so you got to put some kind of spacer or something in there, to keep it away. So yeah, you're gonna have to do something, to do that kind of work. And unfortunately, well, I was about to say something that's not really true. You can frame it without glass, okay? But if you're going to do that, then you need to seal it somehow. And I've actually known people, and I've done it myself actually, where I've taken water media or things that are on paper, mounted on a hard panel with
Right.
like acrylic gel medium, and then actually spray it with a clear acrylic over it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that will keep it protected from moisture and, you know, people putting their hands on it and stuff like that. Actually, where I used that at was not a work on a piece of paper, but I had gone out and I was experimenting, and I saw these watercolor canvases that I had never used before. And so, you know, I did a couple of watercolors on them and liked them. You know, you know, I liked the result of them. And then I kind of started thinking about, well, okay, how am I actually going to, you know, frame these? And they're canvases, you can just pop them into a frame, but then you have watercolor that's not protected, see, and it doesn't have a piece of glass on it.
Right.
And so I experimented with using some clear acrylic spray to seal those watercolors. And as far as I can tell, you know, they're fine.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you can do that with canvas, you could probably do it with paper as well. And the only difference with the paper is that if you leave it exposed like that, it's still going to expand and contract because of humidity, because it's not sealed in there. And
The paper itself.
yeah, the paper itself.
Okay.
But you know, with that clear acrylic over the front of your painting, at least moisture is not going to get to your painting, not from the front side at least, and it's not going to start shifting and moving. So
Would it pay to spray both sides?
on paper, I don't know. See, you know, that's the thing I kind of wonder about with paper. I guess you could. I mean, it's kind of like taking that watercolor paper and mounting it to a board, because
Right.
there's acrylic. I'm using acrylic to stick it down to the board and flatten it out, right? So there's already acrylic on that side. After I work on the front side, I'm sealing it with a spray acrylic. So I guess it would be the same thing. I don't know how that would work out though with something that was unmounted. You know? So again, you know, I would, if it were me, I would take a piece of watercolor paper, you know, probably from the same pad that you're working in, you know, just splash some color on there, you know, something that's not precious, you know, something that you can afford to, if it turns out to be a disaster, you know, it's no great loss, and experiment with it and see what happens, you know. So I might start by spraying the back, you know, after I've done the watercolor on the front. Start by spraying the back, let it dry, and see if it dries flat, and then turn it over and spray the other side of it. You know, I think keeping it flat will be the challenge.
Right.
So, but you don't know. Yeah, you don't know if it's dry. So, anyhow, anybody got any other questions about that, or just a thought? Okay, thought you might want to know that stuff.
No.
Okay.
Charles,
Yeah.
are there with the oil and frame, is there a special bracket that you can use to affix your oil painting into the frame?
Yeah.
Is there something we should look for? Okay.
Yeah, there are. In fact, thank God for the internet. If you go to a frame shop, a lot of times when you get the painting back, you don't see it because they usually in a frame shop they'll put a nice piece of paper across the back and the wire and everything. But underneath that piece of paper, how they actually fix your painting in place into the frame is they have these little kind of Z-shaped brackets, you know, metal brackets, and they come in different heights, right? So they have like 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch, 3/4, an inch, 1.5 inches, you know, probably up to, you know, probably up to about 1.5 inches. And you can buy, you know, bags of about 100 each, you know, of those little brackets. And it's probably been about 2 or 3 years. But, you know, I ordered a bag of every size, you know, and I think it probably ended up costing me like $30 or $40 to get, you know, about 100 of each side. And I still have tons of them left. But I probably framed a good 40 or 50 pieces using those. And they're easy to use. You know, the only thing you have to do is just, you know, put it on there and make sure that.
What are we talking about? I just got on. What are we talking about?
Somebody get
Brian,
up
how you
late.
doing, Bernice? We're talking about these little metal brackets that you put on the back of the frame to hold
Are
your.
those like the
oil paint.
triangular?
Oh, yes, yes, okay.
Are those like the triangular wafers?
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no,
Mhm.
no. No.
Where do you get them in?
Yeah, these are like a, you know, it's got a hole in you know, both ends of it that you can put a screw through. But like I said, they're shaped kind of like a Z. You know, so you got a flat part and it comes up, and you got another flat part that goes over the back.
Do you mean the ones that come when you mean the one that when you order the canvases and you get these little metal pieces that come with it, or these little wooden pieces that come with it that go in the back? That's not
Well,
what you're talking
they're
about,
not
right?
wooden. These are metal.
No.
You know, to
Oh,
mount,
okay.
you know, in the frame.
You hang
Like
it.
it's to make
Yeah.
the frame more stable or something? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it might have a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch offset,
Mhm.
right?
Hmm.
And so you put a screw, you know, into the frame itself, and then you put a screw through into the stretcher bar on the back. And it,
Where do you buy them? Where do you buy them in bulk? I know Michael's has the little packages, but they're only about 3 or 4 in each package.
you don't want to buy them in an art store. You want to go
What about
online.
in a hardware store? They don't sell those
No.
stuff in hardware store?
They don't sell them in, you can't get them from Home Depot, or you've got to order them online. And, you know, they're just picture frame mounting brackets. And you can get them off of Amazon is where I bought them. And like I said, you know, you can get a different offset from, you know, pretty much so 1/8 of an inch all the way up to about 1.5 inches. And they're not a lot of money, you know. I mean, it's probably like $8 or $9, you know, for a package of 100. And
I plan to make my own frames, but not the traditional way. I'm planning to do it like when you do a door frame or a window frame. When I
Okay.
try,
yeah,
I cut the 2 vertical pieces, the 2
Right.
horizontal pieces, and with a little screw, a little nail, put it together, and make a lot of small holes on each side, so I can screw it on the canvas with a very small screw to hold it.
hmm
I'm gonna try it. Let's see.
yeah. Actually, I've made frames before, and I just bought a router bit that will route the edge for you. That it's got an inset so that you can literally lock fit, you know, the 2 pieces of wood together, and you don't need a nail or glue or anything. I mean, once it's in there, it's not going anywhere. You know, it literally locks it together.
How?
Because of the shape of the router, it makes like this kind of interesting shape that, you know, when you slide the two pieces together, and it's locked in place. So when I get around to using it, I'll show you guys. Okay.
Are you talking about the corner that you route, or are you talking about the edges, where the inset is, where you put the picture?
Well, what you do is it basically, it's the corner and the inset, and you go all the way down the side channel. But then when you put your cross pieces together, they just lock in on it. Again, when I get around to, pardon?
Do you know the name of that bit? Because I've just used those corner anchors things.
No, it's another one of these things that I saw off of one of these woodworking sites, and I ordered it, and I've got it, and I just have to get downstairs and play with it now. But when I do, I'll take some photos of it and I'll show you. It's fun stuff, neat to play with. But you know, and it's not just good for picture frames. It's good for any kind of joinery, like furniture, things like that. You know, if you've got to put two pieces of wood together, and you want them at a 40, well, at a 90-degree angle, it's great because, I mean, it just locks them together. You know, you can glue them if you want, but you don't need to. So, pretty cool stuff. Anyway, so let's get on to looking at some of the artists that we're going to talk about today. Yeah, Rebecca, you're here. Okay, good.
Yes, I'm still working on the new schedule, Charles. Thank you for your
Okay. There was you, and then, oh, Susan. Yeah, Susan Adair. Yeah, and she's not here. But I had mentioned to her drawings yesterday. It kind of looked like, they reminded me of an artist by the name of Egon Schiele. And I've talked about him before. And so I gathered up some of his drawings. And then I gathered up some drawings by another artist by the name of Ferdinand Hodler. And we'll look at some of his work too. But just real quick, you know, just as a review, I'm gonna.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you guys have seen Schiele's work before, because I've talked about him before.
Right.
But, you know, this is some of his line drawings.
Right.
Now, you know, he was not, you know, he wasn't like a tonal type person. You know, he was very linear in his approach. And people who draw tend to be one or the other. They tend to be either lineal or tonal. I tend to be tonal, not linear.
Tonal means you vary. Excuse me?
In grayscale, value.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, rather than outlines and things, you know, it's dark and light shapes. Okay.
Right.
And a range of them. Okay. But Schiele is definitely what you would call, you know, somebody who is lineal. Now, there's things I love about Schiele's work, you know, in his drawings. And, you know, then there's things that, you know, I kind of disagree with. You know, he draws in it's kind of like, I would call his, or kind of, if I had to critique his drawings, they're coat hangers. It's like he took a piece of wire, you know, and bent around the shape or the form, because all of his line weight is really pretty similar, you know. If there's any variation in it, you know, it's not a lot. But they're still beautiful drawings, okay? Don't get me wrong. But, you know, to me, it kind of flattens out. But he was very good at, like, creating form, you know, by using, you know, breaking inside the line. you know, which I talk a lot about, you know, taking one thing and bringing it inside to kind of
Right.
indicate that one thing is in front of another. And he was very good with that. But really emotional, you know, very kind of powerful drawings. You know, he wasn't trying to make people look pretty or anything like that. You know, he was kind of drawing, you know, more what he felt, I think, about, you know, the person that he was working from. But see how that hand moves forward and the
Yes.
transparency, see how he drew the arm through underneath. But still, you get the idea that this is moving forward, right? And that the arm, you know, was coming in front of the leg. Now, interestingly enough, you know, he didn't draw the leg all the way through. You know, he stopped that. But here, you know, this arm went down, and then it's like the hand went on last.
But the leg is all the way through. The arms are just in front of it.
You what now, Bernice?
I was saying, it seems to me that the leg is drawn completely. It's just that the arms are in front of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's like she's got her arms around, you know, her lower part of her leg, you know, in that
Right.
pose. And, you know, there's a gap in here. He hadn't even really connected that arm all the way down here. But still, you know, he's got the hand sitting in front. It works. It's fine. You know, you understand what's going on. But he had an intensity to his drawings. Now here, you see, he gets a little more variation. He almost gets tonal, almost. You know, but really, really beautiful work. And you know, he was part of what is referred to as the Secessionist art movement. Him and Gustav Klimt, and there were probably about 20, you know, different Austrian and German artists who were part of the Secessionist art movement. And they've kind of done them a disservice, I think, you know, art history has, in the sense that they've lumped them all together with Art Nouveau. And if you look at Secessionists and then you look at Art Nouveau, they were around the same period of time. And in some ways they influenced each other, but yet they were very different from each other, you know. But, you know, historically, you know, when you go and you try to look stuff up on Secessionists, and this has probably only been in the last 10 to 15 years, they seem to have just kind of lumped them in with, you know, Art Nouveau, which is totally incorrect. They had two totally different ideas going on there, and two totally different art movements, even though they were, you know, kind of the same time, you know, happening at the same time. They did the same thing with Ferdinand Hodler. Now they have him categorized for some reason as a post-impressionist. And Hodler's work isn't post-impressionist at all. It's, you know, it was a whole nother art movement, you know, and him and a bunch of Italians and Swiss artists and stuff, they've lumped them all in with post-impressionism now. And it's like, yeah, doesn't work for me. But, you know, for a line drawing, you know, and just the fluidity of the line and stuff, I mean, you know, Sheely does beautiful work. You know, it's amazing stuff, and, you know, really, really powerful. And Eloise, I put this one in here just for you, because remember we were talking about outlines the other day, and I was talking about changing the color of the outline.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, you know, he goes from kind of a bluish color outline to a gray, you know, to a red. And so, you know, depending on the area that he's working on, See, to separate out these two figures, one has a red outline, the other has a blue. See, and it separates them. So one is generally warmer, one is cooler. Another piece. So anyway, that's Sheely, and I could spend a week, talking about his work. But if you're not familiar with it, I would
What's the general size of each of those? Are they small, big?
I would say they're probably medium size, probably around 1824. They're not tiny little drawings for the most part. I think they're fairly good size.
Charles,
yes.
would you please spell his last name?
Yeah, it's right here at the top of the page. SCHIELE.
Thank you.
Egon Sheely.
Right. You've talked about him before.
Yes, I have. Numerous times. Yeah, again, the way he approached drawing and the way I approach drawing is very, very different. And that's okay. I still appreciate his work. So, okay. So there's Sheely. And then since I mentioned Hodler, I want to show you some of Hodler's work as well. And Hodler he's one of these artists who I wasn't really familiar with until really about the middle of last year. And, that's one of the benefits of doing this is that I get to learn things too. I had not really been, familiar with his work. And then, but he had some amazing stuff. But as a draftsman, very good at drawing. And he ended up doing, a lot of murals, and then, commission pieces. But he originally started off as a landscape painter. So here's a figure study from one of his paintings that we'll probably see that figure later. But this is pretty typical of, his ability, life drawing. And if you will, when I talk about varying line weights and things like that, you could study this drawing all day long. He's got all the information there, but look at how varied, the light and dark value of the line is and how fluid it is. And, he does some really, really nice stuff. Remember I was talking about the shape of the hair, right? And finding a shape for it and how, one shape can come in front of another. And then here on the neck, right? If he hadn't put that little line right in there, it wouldn't have turned from the back of the neck, to the side, see? But he just put just a faint little line there, just to suggest that, okay, there was a change in plane, and all of a sudden that whole neck is not flat. And see how he's moving, as he's laying in the shadow or some indication of a shadow. See how he's working in the direction and moving around the form rather than straight up and down. Same thing here with the leg. See, this leg comes in and, he stops drawing the outline of the leg and he just uses that tone. But you see, he's not laying it all down in the same direction. See, he's curving it. See, as he moves up that hip, he's changing the direction of it. See, to tell you, that it's not a flat shape. It's actually rounded and moving around it. So, there's one of his landscapes. A bit a bit symmetrical, a little bit static for me. Yeah. But, you know, very good at, you know, creating depth, managing color, you know, getting a sense of distance and scale. You know, certainly understood perspective, atmospheric perspective, you know, very well. But he
Who
didn't
made this?
always.
Who made this one?
Ferdinand Hodler.
Ferdinand. spell the last
Ferdinand,
name?
F-E-R-D, it's up at the
Yeah.
top. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I-N-A-N-D, Ferdinand, and then Hodler, H-O-D-L-E-R. And he was a Swiss artist. Around about the same time, you know, as Scheele and Klimt.
Oh, okay.
This is one of the mural pieces that he did, I believe. And if you look at that, I mean, you see, I don't see post-impressionism there. You know, that makes no sense to me. You know, he was actually part of the Secessionist art movement, and that looked very much so what I would call Secessionist,
Sadler.
not Art Nouveau. Okay, but Secessionist. Yeah. There's another one of his studies for a figure. Now, you know, he had kind of a rough life. You know, I think, you know, I think at an early age, he was very young. And, you know, I think his mother and his father both died. And then he was sort of adopted by an uncle who put him to work actually in this guy's, and his uncle was an engraver or something like that. Anyway, he found him a job, you know, working in studio of this fairly well-known landscape artist in Switzerland. And so he studied, you know, he basically apprenticed with this landscape painter for most of his, you know, early life, and then became an artist, you know, on his own. But again, you know, this is one of these, you know, one of the mural pieces that he did. You know, somewhere, I guess, you know, in his mid 30s, you know, he met a woman who, you know, he fell in love with, and it's this lady right here. They were not married very long. I think maybe like 3 to 5 years, and she contracted cancer. And, you know, for the next 2 years, you know, he ended up doing a whole series of drawings of her and paintings, and, you know, her general decline. And, you know, some of those are like really tragic but powerful, you know, pieces of artwork. Oh, yeah. That's one of his drawings. And then this is another mural piece that he did. And I think this is not the mural itself. I think this is a study, you know, for one of the pieces that he did. There's another one of his landscapes. And again, yeah, you know, I don't get the post-impressionist thing at all.
No.
Male figure.
I found it.
You found what? Hodler?
Yes, in Google.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, he's not hard to find. Look at how he drew the hands, you know, and the expression of his. Yeah. Now this is this is like one of the preliminary drawings for a bigger piece of artwork that he did. It's another mural. Yeah. Another male figure. That's another one of the murals that he did.
She needs to be fed.
Pardon?
And she needs to be fed.
Oh, she needs to be fed? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think that's, you know, he basically used his wife as a model for that. You know, I don't think she took that pose. It was just, you know, but yeah, he was kind of drawing her in, I think, I can't really remember the title of that piece, but it had to do something with, you know, all the phases you go through in life. And I think that's like, you know, she was sick and dying, you know, was the idea. This is for another concept drawing for another mural that he did. He did a lot of stuff for the Swiss Guard, you know, a lot of murals and things. Yeah, this is out of that same series. But this is the finished, you know, one of the finished pieces, a section of it. This is a drawing of his wife toward the end. And, you know, she's, you know, you can tell she's just sort of wasted away. There's that male figure, there's study for it. This is a little thumbnail or study of probably one of his more famous pieces. And this is a big mural. Yeah, this is another one of the pieces of his wife. That turned out little. But yeah, it's something I don't like about getting stuff off the internet. Is that a lot of this stuff is pretty low resolution when you get right down to it. Now that's, you know, that's the final mural. You know, we had a better image of a study of it.
He did a lot of work.
Yes, he did. He's very prolific. And a lot of these murals are big, you know, I mean, they're, you know, 15, 20 feet tall. You know.
Where are they located?
Mainly in Switzerland.
I mean, are they, public buildings?
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, he did a lot of work for the Swiss Guard. He did a couple of theaters, you know, things like that. So yeah, they're all public spaces. Yeah, this is one of the finished pieces. Again, very low resolution, which is kind of a shame. Now his landscapes, things like that, were not, you know, not particularly big pieces. But he could draw, you know, very well. You know, excellent draftsman. Yeah, there's the full piece right there. Pretty good sized painting. Anyway. Now you've never seen that done before, right? Where you're breaking down the figure into these kind of blocky shapes and forms, right? You're just figuring stuff out. That's his wife. You know, probably before she got ill. And That's him. From what I've read about him, he was really quite a character. He was very good at self-promotion. This is a sketch for a piece that he did for the Swiss Guard, and it's these dying soldiers, and they're you know, even though they're in the midst of dying, they're holding up the banner, you know, the flag for their you know, unit or whatever. They're not letting it fall. There's a last piece I have for him, his wife again. And again, you know, these were probably, you know, these were not belabored, you know, drawings and paintings of her. You know, they were probably just quick, you know, probably 15, 20, 30-minute sketches. Yeah. Anyway, but I thought I would show you his work. It's like the more I look at his stuff, I really like a lot of his work. You know, what he did. Anyhow, so any questions about him or Sheila? That whole time period of art?
So Sheely and Hodler and some of the others are considered secessionist painters.
Not secessionist, sessionist. S-E-C.
Secessionist painters.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, and it was a period of time
Mhm.
between the people that did the things academically and conservatively versus the ones that were more avant-garde.
Yeah, they were considered avant-garde at the time. Again, it was about the same period of time that Art Nouveau in France and through different parts of Europe, mainly in France, though. Right at that period, it was really about the mid 1800s, around about 1840, 1860, that in Scotland, you began to get what you call the arts and crafts movement. And about the same time, or just a little bit later than the arts and crafts movement, the Art Nouveau movement started in France, but they influenced each other. And the philosophy, or the idea behind both Art Nouveau and arts and crafts and Secessionists, they were influenced really by a lot of the same writers and people. And it was kind of a backlash against the industrialization of the world. You know, if you kind of think about what was going on, you had all these people who had, you know, jobs in rural farmland. You know, they were mainly farmers and things like that. And all of a sudden, you know, they all migrated into the cities like London and, you know, industrial cities, really all over Europe at that time, and left the land to come in and work in factories, right? And so the population of these cities, you know, swelled and grew. And at that time, they were using coal as a main fuel source, and cities got really polluted. You know, the air quality got really bad, and then, you know, everybody, you know, all these people moving in the city, they were buying this, you know, all these furnishings and things that were being mass produced. And, you know, before that time, people would make their own furniture. You know, you couldn't buy furniture out of a factory. You know, you had a craftsman who made a table or something like that. Now, they were just spitting out tables out of these factories, and they were all the same. And so a lot of the artisans rebelled against that. And that's kind of what started the arts and crafts movement and Art Nouveau, because there was a loss of what they felt was there was a loss of having anything that was personal or emotional about the things that you lived with, because you could go across the hall to your neighbor and they would have the same table or the same, you know, pieces of furniture that you had, because they all came out of the same factory. So it was a movement back to craftsmanship, individuality, having some kind of emotional attachment, to your environment, the place, the places that you live. They're trying to bring some of that back. So, anyhow, so that was what was going on back then. Let's see. Ooh. Let me show you this. No. Okay. I'm gonna show you two other artists. This is on YouTube. The first one is Gerald Brockhurst. And so I'm gonna play that video for you guys. And then we'll look at the last artist of the day. Let's see. Brockhurst. Yes, right there. Now Brockhurst was, I think he was like post 1900. I'll have to check the dates on that. But probably around, like from 1910 through about 1940 or 1950, I think. But I think you'll like his work. It's a little different. Yeah, 1950s. So what'd you guys think of that?
It looks like he painted pictures of people who were modeling for him.
Well, he was a portraitist in England.
Oh, okay.
And it gives you a pretty short range from about the 1930s and 1940s. So it was, you know, like right about the time of the beginning of the Second World War. Because remember, Second World War in Europe began in 1940. It was probably around 1940 when the Germans started moving into Poland and areas like that. The U.S. didn't get into Second World War until 1942. Was I think when we landed in Normandy. But up until then, the British and the French were in the midst of a world war, at that point in time. So he was doing portraiture and things, previous to that, and then, through the war years. And you could kind of look at the paintings and they were kind of gloomy, to me. But it was a pretty good reflection of the time, of what it was like, being in England. Now, he was not in London, he was in Birmingham. And Birmingham was like an industrial city. And, they talk a lot about, the Germans bombing London. Well, Birmingham was just about wiped off the map because it was a steel and they had like a lot of munitions factories, and they were making airplanes, tanks, and everything else. Well, the Germans just annihilated that place, really wiped it out during World War II. So being in that area, it would be a little depressing, I think, with all that going on.
Well, in addition to the portraits, which were really nice, I thought his handling of fabrics was sensational.
Mm-hmm.
Bernice, were you watching the fabrics?
No, I was not.
Well, actually,
I usually do. That's the thing I do to look at.
Okay.
But
well,
I got caught up in the faces.
Well, the good news is we're going to go back and we're going to look at it, Bernice, and I'm going to kind of go through them a little at a time, okay? Because I wanted to point out a couple of things. A lot of those pieces that they weren't pencil, they were actually pen. They were actually pen and ink.
I could tell.
Yeah,
I thought that most of them were drawings anyway.
Well, they are, but they're like pen line. They're with like a quill pen. Like, yeah, I can't blow this up any bigger, unfortunately. But if you look at all the cross hatching in there.
Right.
See, that's all pen work. Even back in here. See, he wasn't using graphite and something that he could blend. He was building up all those tonal values with these really, really fine, lines, using a quill pen.
But he did etchings and lithographs too, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, some of those might have been, etchings and things. But look, pen and ink, wash, real fine quill line pens. Very, very expressive stuff. But, come on. There was one in particular that I saw that was really beautifully drawn. Not that. Where are you? It was a young woman laying down and just, yeah, like even this one. Look at how he got the form, in the face. Like I said, I wish I could blow this up bigger, but it's just like real fine, cross hatching, to build those forms up. And it still looks soft. It doesn't look like, real hard edged. But it all fits together really, really nicely. All right, where is she? Well, yeah. I wanted to point this out. Now I'm not sure whether this is an etching or what, but anybody recognize this? We talked about it a long time ago. Remember Degas and his painting?
Yes, right.
Yes, and of the woman, brushing the girl's hair.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So this is like 50, 60 years later. And, obviously, the concept, the idea behind this was influenced by Degas. It's almost the identical composition. I mean, almost exact. Where the table is, the pose of the girl, everything. The clothing is slightly different, but it's basically the same thing. So I didn't know whether any of you picked that up or not. But, that's what happened. I mean, one artist influenced another. You see something, and whether it's really conscious or not, things stick. Things stick in your head. Yeah.
Charles, that one reminds me of Norman Rockwell.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Now, Bernice?
Yes.
There you are. Okay. So look at what he did with this hat and see how he put down the lines here to create a shadow, right?
Right.
But at the same time that he's using these to kind of create a tone, he's also describing the shape of that hat, see? Because these are following the form, right? And they're not straight lines, they're just slightly curved, right? Same thing with the hair. See? None of this is just straight line. He's following the shape or the form of the hair.
Okay.
And building that up.
Okay.
Well, you have that one, Charles. Is there any kind of rule that states how large a figure, a head like that should be on a canvas? Because it's almost on the edges. The reason I ask, I did a portrait of a lady and I think I made her too large. She's all over the margins. So I didn't want to have to repaint it, but it looks like maybe it's oversized. So is there any rule about how the distances from the edges you should have, or what's acceptable, or size of the face or anything?
No, not really. I mean, I've seen, artists, very well-known artists who, did portraits very much so like this and had it cropped, very tightly like that. Personally, I don't find that very appealing. But then again, too, it's hard to say because again, we're just seeing this on the internet. I mean, there could be a lot more paper around this and they cropped it so tight to get the image big enough so you could really see what's going on. I mean, there could be another 5 or 6 inches out here, on each side of it. We just don't know. But would I normally try to crop a portrait of someone like this? No, I wouldn't. I would kind of encourage you or, me or whoever's going to do it. If I were going to draw a head like this, I would try to leave a little extra space over here to the left because he's looking in that direction. And I want to kind of leave a little bit of negative space, for him to basically look off into.
Okay.
But, in answer to your question, I have seen paintings where it's like the edge of the face is literally right up against the frame.
Oh.
So, I mean, it's been done before.
Mhm. Okay. His
You
ear
know,
looks really large, isn't it? Doesn't it?
it would be a little bit. Yeah, I mean, he's a young kid, and
Oh,
he's
yeah.
got funny ears that stick out. You know,
Mhm.
but yeah, he's got a lot of character, you know, to his face for a young kid like that. Let me find the one for Bernice that I would really, well, not just Bernice, really everybody. I'm not really
No,
picking on.
especially
I'm not picking on you, Bernice.
No, I love it. I love it.
But no, there was one that I wanted to particularly go back and really look at. I don't know where she is. I thought she was toward maybe.
I am right here.
No. I'm talking about the drawing. You know.
I know. I just couldn't resist that.
Yeah, she looks familiar, right?
Is that Marlena Dietrich?
I think so. Yeah, I think that was Marlena.
I think so too.
Where is she? God. I thought she was before. Here, let's just play it here. I'll just stop it when I get there. Come on, girl. Where are you? Hey, it was a beautiful drawing. There. Yeah, that one. Okay. So, you know, pen and ink, right? You know, and you see how, you know, you use this kind of scribbly pen line, but it kind of creates the sheen on the fabric. And this is not like a really belabored drawing. But again, you know, how the directions, you know, of his pen line, you know, begin to describe the form, you know, of the dress. It's not flat. You know, how he indicates, you know, the different shapes and folds, you know, in the fabric. And he doesn't overdo it. You know, he doesn't try to draw every fold. You know, he probably eliminated, you know, quite a few in there. But, you know, he emphasized, you know, just the ones that really help you understand what was going on there. Really nicely.
There was one toward the beginning of a portrait where the woman had sort of a white, I guess you call it bib or collar, sort of transparent. That was quite nice, the way he handled that.
You're saying at the beginning?
I think it was toward the beginning. One of the portraits, that one.
That one? Yeah.
That's better. Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice effect.
I mean, just the folds of the bib over the, you could see the differences. I think it's great.
Yeah, and you know, these don't look perfectly flat. You get a sense
right
that each of them have, you know, it's kind of a stiff material. You know, just looking at, you know, the way that it kind of crinkles, you know, across there. You know, really nicely done. Also notice, you know, we can talk about this. Notice how everything here to the front is kind of crisp and the lines are kind of sharp. And then as he moves back and he gets to the shoulders, how they soften, you know, to move that edge back. And the same thing is true, you know, this side of the face is much sharper. And then this side of the face is a little bit softer. And then as he moves to the back of the neck and everything, it gets really soft. Same thing with the hairline back here.
And the shadow moves toward the shoulder. The shadow of her head is also on the shoulder.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a
We
cat
just
shadow.
talked about that.
Right.
I'm trying to learn from you
Yeah.
how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you see, you know, and he's definitely, you know, he's he understands the variation in the planes in the face. See, definitely, you know, real strong light on the front plane, and then as it transitions into the side, and you get that core shadow running right through here, right? And then all of this is either reflected light or shadow on this side. And see how that makes your face feel dimensional?
That's really overall a very nice painting.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, beautiful stuff. Yeah. Let's see. There's since we're gonna tiptoe through the tulips back through here. Let's see. One. Yeah, that's, you know, oh, but where'd she go? There she is. No, not that one. That looks kind of. I think it was the one we started with.
Okay, now it's better.
Yeah, this one. Okay. Look at the brushwork on that. Okay. You know, real subtle changes in color and intensity, but you know, the more intense, and none of this is like really, really bright, intense color, but you see the intensity of the color in the face is really right in here. And then as he moves back, see how he grays everything down and mutes it? And that, you know, really keeps you focused. You know, really right in there where he wants you to look. So, you know, nice brushwork, you know. And again, you know, how he's laying the color down. You can see the direction of the paint stroke. And it's almost like he's sculpting her out, you know. Because all the brush marks are not moving in the same direction. You know, just like when he was laying down tone or whatever on the fabric or in any of the forms, you know, he's following the form, you know, with his brushwork. Again, to try to describe, you know, the fact that that's not straight, you know, that's rounded, it kind of sweeps upward. And so you begin to get, you know, some understanding of the actual forms in the face by the way he used the media and he used the brush. Okay. So, anybody got any questions about him? Nope. Okay. All right. Are you guys up for one more?
Come on.
Or have you had
Yes. Yes.
Well, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, you're up for one more? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
How many minutes? How many minutes?
Oh, only about 10. You know,
Okay,
about 10, 15.
hop to it.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, this is, we're going way forward in time. This is actually one of my favorite, what you would call modern painters, okay? And his name is Richard Diebenkorn. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him or not, but I think you'll be surprised by the variety of work that he did. He painted for a long time. You know, he was out there for a while. So let's take a look at him. And actually, he's probably one of my favorite modern painters. So let's take a look at Richard. Away we go.
Oh, Richards.
Diebenkorn. So you guys just don't get enough abstract, right?
Yeah.
Well, show the name again.
We'll get back to it.
This is Watercolor?
No, it'd be oil. And then later on acrylic.
You told me we cannot mix acrylic with oil.
That is a discussion we can have. See, they're changing.
Yes. Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Well, all the really, really abstract stuff was very early in his career when he was much younger. And then as he matured, it became more representational. He went the exact opposite from where the rest of the art world was going. So.
George.
Any thoughts about that?
Nah, not for me.
Not for you. Okay. Why is it not for you?
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
Well, I just got a notification. If any of you are thinking about heading to Benson for lunch, don't do that. They didn't get their food today for whatever reason. So unfortunately.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like his work for a lot of different reasons. Is there anybody in particular that you can think of that he would remind you of? His work would remind you of? Maybe?
Charles, I'd like to say something.
Pardon?
Am I on?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. I do not enjoy that type of art because I would like to understand it more, and I don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that it's art. I don't know who the artists are. They call it art because it doesn't appeal to me. The only reaction that I get to that usually is question marks or I really don't like that. That's the emotional response that that type of art generates in me. That's just me. I don't know. His abstracts look very unfinished. There were a couple in there that I did enjoy. The one about the hotel was good. The tiles by the ocean was good. The tomato cut with the knife was good because those were objects that I recognize and know. I think the reason that that kind of art brings a negative response to me in the abstract parts of his work is because I don't relate to them. I don't understand them. Therefore, I don't care for them.
Okay.
Wow.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I would.
I don't care about his work.
You don't care about his work. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he looks a
definitely-
little like Mondrian
definitely.
in some of them.
Betty, is that you?
Yeah, some of his work reminds me of Mondrian.
A little bit. You know, it's some of, you know, Mondrian tended to work in, you know, primary colors. And his palette was a little more sophisticated than that, a little bit broader. Yeah, geometric shapes.
But Mondrian was a little more, to me, definite and edges and
Oh yeah,
things like that. Not
Yeah,
as loose.
yeah. Mondrian was almost like hard edge, you know, which back in the '60s, a lot of abstraction got to, you know, doing what they call hard edge art, and Mondrian was kind of way ahead of his time on that, you know, because he didn't try to blend edges. It was all, you know, black, white, red, yellow, and blue, and always, you know, a very crisp edge on everything with Mondrian. But anyway, Eloise, you had something to say?
Yeah, the first group of paintings I did not care for. They were kind of confusing, I guess, to me. I couldn't relate. I like the color. I look at abstracts for colors and forms, and I just didn't like the colors. But as the film progressed, I could tolerate it a little bit more. I saw it seemed to me that like maybe a little Rothko was in there, and then some Picasso later on. So some of it was okay, but some of it wasn't.
Well, you know, David Coleman. Yeah, John, go ahead.
It's not the type of art that really appeals to me, but I can appreciate what they're doing and see the different effects and things like that. But it's not something I would not rush out to a gallery showing for this person.
Okay. Well, what do I want to say about that? I
say don't give us abstract on Friday.
Don't. Well, I would say that this particular video, they only showed 90 of his paintings, which I was really kind of surprised about. Diebenkorn painted for a long time, and he went through several different phases in his career. But the thing I think that I really like about Diebenkorn is all of his composition. You know, if you just look at the movement and the composition in his work, it's always really, really strong, really good composition. And in fact, you could take any of his abstract paintings and begin to, you know, put objects, you know, in those shapes, places, and make some amazing compositions, you know, if you wanted to do representational art. Okay. You could put figures and faces and things, you know, in place of some of those areas, and shapes that he has in there, and really come up with some pretty amazing paintings. The other thing I like about Diebenkorn is his color. You know, there's really, really a lot of subtlety in his color and about how he uses color to push and pull space. You know, move certain parts of the painting backward, certain parts forward. You know, there's none of those paintings that they showed today, you know, are really flat. You know, and if you look like at somebody's work like Hans Hofmann or a lot of the other abstract expressionist painters, it's almost like they're thinking of a flat two-dimensional surface, and that's as far as they go. But with Diebenkorn, there's these little subtleties of color and juxtapositions of color that really help, to create depth and form, in his paintings that you don't see in a lot of abstract work. But, that's just me. I actually like his work, okay? But, I understand, the reaction to it. A lot of people don't get abstraction, and that's fine. So I figured I would spoon feed you a little bit of it,
Is he still alive?
Diebenkorn? No, I don't think he is now. I think he was up until fairly recently.
He died in
But, yeah.
1990.
Yeah, I don't think he is now. So, but he, that was a small spattering of his work, and in fact, I mean, he's got to have close to a couple of thousand paintings out there.
Mm.
I mean, he was very prolific, and he went, like I said, he went through a lot of different phases. A lot of the abstract stuff came from like the early 60s, up through about the 70s. Probably like, maybe to like really the late 60s, he was still doing what you would call abstract expressionist or field theory work. And we've talked about field theory a little bit, where, the paintings are so large that it's sort of like they fill your peripheral vision. And so they give you this feeling of like being inside the painting, because of the scale of them. And then, he started kind of paring that down, working smaller, and went more representational. And he did what's called the Ocean Park series. And that's all pretty much a landscape, around LA and Southern California. And he's got to have probably, close to 100 of those paintings in that series alone. And they're all landscape, but they're treated, in a really interesting way. He's taken landscape and he's abstracted it, and used it to kind of create compositions with. So maybe I'll try to gather some of those up so you guys can look at them at sometime in the future, and we'll talk about them. But and
some of his paintings.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Some of his paintings with the color and just the shapes look a little like Matisse too. I thought of Matisse in some of them.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Actually, I looked at a video on Matisse like day before yesterday or something. I was thinking about, but that one video was about an hour and a half long. And it was like this. It was just nothing but, painting after painting. Matisse did such an enormous amount of work, so I figured I wouldn't lock you in here for an hour and a half watching, endless paintings flash by. At any rate, yeah, I'll try to find some more of Diebenkorn's work, and particularly that Ocean Park series, and share them with you, and we can talk about them further. Oh, okay. I just got another. If you are heading for lunch to the Benson Center, the food has now arrived. They're gonna, so you can go grab a lunch to go.
I passed.
All right. Anyway, anybody got anything else we need to talk about before we go away today?
No.
Okay.
Have a nice lunch.
Yeah,
Nice
I've gotten a few pieces of work that people have sent me. Not a lot for tomorrow, So
I'll
if you
send
got
you
stuff,
something.
huh?
I'll send you something later.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, it's been fun, everybody. Have a
Okay,
good rest
thank
of your day.
you. See you all.
Monica.
Thank you. Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you tomorrow at about 2 o'clock. Okay.
Right on.
All right. Bye.